We're set.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first 2017 Stat Race Lens webinar. What a great occasion, great opportunity to look ahead to Saturday, to the innovative, the fascinating Pegasus World Cup, and an unbelievable card of racing put on by PJ Campo and his team. Stakes, maiden special weights, everything to test your mettle and to help you use Stats Race Lens to pick winners. We've got a terrific hour ahead. We'll look at as many races as we possibly can, of course, including the feature that pits the 1-2 finishers from the Breeders' Cup and the multiple champion winners from Saturday night at Gulfstream in the Eclipse Awards as 2016 put to bed. And we look ahead to Saturday with NBC's Laffit Pincay III. He's at Hallandale and clearly excited about kicking off 2017 at Gulfstream with this unique situation. Laffit, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Steve. I come to Florida. You go to Vegas. I'm feeling ignored and neglected and very disappointed with how that unfolded.
Well, this was, as I should mention, he's at the Hallandale. I'm in Las Vegas for the National Handicapping Championship, which, of course, gets underway in earnest tomorrow. Today, the last chance, first chance, 300 participants today. They'll add another 9 seats from today's NHC, but I'll be watching along with everybody on NBC. And, in fact, before we do anything else, Laffit, lay out the coverage time and the specifics.
We're so excited. You know, generally speaking, in January, a national audience that may tune in to watch horse racing for the Kentucky Derby, the Breeders' Cup, there's not a lot of buzz in the national media when it comes to horse racing. And now you have this rematch and clash of titans from the Breeders' Cup Classic with Arrowgate and California Chrome, his final start. Mike Tirico will be hosting. He'll be on set with Jerry Bailey, Randy Moss. Maria Menounos will be there, handling all the festivities and the celebrities from the red carpet, and Eddie Olczyk, Donna Brothers, and myself. A 90-minute broadcast, and couldn't be more excited that, again, a national audience has a chance to see California Chrome in his last start go head-to-head as the top 2 dirt horses in the country clash once again. It's going to be awesome.
Well, looking forward to it. We'll talk about Pegasus in a little bit, because it does seem that as we get closer to the race, people are scouring Stats Race Lens and the PPs to try to figure out a way to either bet this race, either giving in to the 2 stars, or for the potential that one or both even fail to win. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Craig Walker is with us as well from the development team, and himself a top-level performer. We were talking in terms of handicapping and horseplay, and not just for harness either, because we talked earlier, and Craig let it be known that he was an early success story at an NHC. Craig, welcome back to the webinars.
Hey, thanks a lot. It's great to be back again. And I'm just out here in Silicon Valley, as usual. In the office, I never leave.
That's you guys. That's your raison d'être. It's basically one of those mice mazes, and you constantly are coming up with new innovations. And of course, if we go back to the second half of last year, and as we went through the webinars, we welcomed in so many great ideas and input from so many of the users and subscribers that have enjoyed it and have added it to their arsenal. And we'll dive right in, and we're going to build our way to the feature, which will be the 12th race on the 12 race card. One of the things about this card at Gulfstream tomorrow, Laffit and Craig, 3 maiden special weights and some nice mix. Horses mostly these 3-year-olds with some experience. There are some first-time starters, and so you start to rely on a little bit of pedigree information. It's kind of a mixed bag, and the fourth is really where this starts.
Yeah, that's the first race that Laffit and I wanted to look at. We each came up with a different horse. So I want to look at number 11, Union Way. I'll bring up the PPs here. So we see this horse has had two starts. One of the first things I noticed, one thing when I'm using race lens in this whole area, underneath the jockey name and the trainer name, are the situational statistics. So one quick thing that I look for is I try to see a lot of green. The way the defaults are set, if I mouse over here for distance surface, it means it's a highly above average win percent for turf routes in this case, because that's what this race is. And the one that caught my eye was this time they're putting blinkers on this horse. It's his third start. So the trainer, George Arnold, has a 19% win percent with that, and a plus 49% return on investment. And so that's something that I look for. It looks positive. The other thing I liked was that from the first start to the second start, his equibase speed figure improved. So the first start was a 79, the next start was a 90. And then the other thing is, in Race Lens, you can always click on the date, and that will bring up the chart of the race, or you can click on the red video icon, and that will bring up the replay of the race. And so I saw that horse hopped at the start when I looked at the comments and the running line. So I watched the race, and it was kind of a minor hop, but it did put him at the back of the field, and the horse ended up having a wide trip the whole way. The winner of that race was an even money type favorite that caught a horse who was on the lonely lead right at the end, and so there really wasn't any type of flow for him to have a chance to win the race. So I thought that there could be some improvement there as well. And then just one last thing I wanted to look at is we'll use the True Odds module. And the True Odds module, if people have forgotten, has on the left-hand side what we call the data grid, and then on the right is the race projection. And Stats has come up with some algorithms that try to generate how the race might play out. So in this case, you can kind of see that the 2 and the 8 look like they're going to control the pace. And then in our scenario, when we look at this column for the win percent, we show that number 11, Union Way, is the selection. I also go over here and sort the adjusted True Odds column, and that shows you clearly that Union Way's picked on top. He's projected at 9-2 fair odds, and the next closest horses are 9-1. So that's the main reason I'm picking the horse. You know, watching the replay, the blinkers on improvement, and the Race Lens adjusted True Odds predicts that horse is the winner. So Laffit, you can talk about the horse that you liked.
It's a great aspect of Race Lens is the True Odds. I wish you could guarantee that 9-1 I'm seeing here on number 2, Ritzy Rose is who I wound up with here, and the idea that John Velasquez, his ability to wake up horses, John Velasquez first time in the saddle with Ritzy Rose. But you mentioned the pace, Craig, and she does figure to control the pace. It's her and number 8, Deccan. We'll see who actually is able to make the lead going into that first turn at 1 1/8 here for these 3-year-old fillies. And the idea, again, with Race Lens, it's the ability to go a little bit deeper with the statistics. And maybe you have it in your mind a certain handicapping angle that you say to yourself, oh, and every time I look up that this particular type of angle works, or that horse doing something new, that this works. This allows you to dig a little bit deeper, and statistically, mathematically, the computer generating whether or not some of these angles that we feel to be true are true or aren't. Here's one, for example. I'm big on the trip handicapping aspect. With Ritzy Rose here, going from an outside post to an inside post. This is turf routes at Gulfstream Park. outside post to an inside post. In her last start, her second career start, breaking from post position number 9, a much cozier, with her speed, much cozier number 2 post position. And when you calculate and you put in that formula, turf routes, Gulfstream, outside post to inside post, you're looking at a 19% win percentage, a 7 success score. Again, anything over 5 is off the charts. 7 success score and a 15% return on investment. The true odds, Craig, say 9-1. She's 4-1 on the morning line. Yeah, I'd like something in the neighborhood of that 9-1 on Ritzy Rose for Josie Carroll, first time John Velasquez.
You should mention too a couple of things about Saturday when it comes to the turf races. They are taking down the inner rail, so we've got several of the turf races at 0 feet. This happens to be a race that'll be on the outer, the turf rail set at 84 feet for the outside post. So a consideration there as well. Typically, as it happens at Gulfstream, when the rail is down, the further in it is, in those cases, the inside posts absolutely get a big edge. Things even out a little bit more, and it's a little counterintuitive, but the outside posts can do okay when they're out at 60, 72, 84, 96, all the way out to the 120. It's kind of an interesting thing. The turns obviously get more sweeping, and as a result, it does allow for some, for some of those outside horses. When we talk later about the main track and the 12 hole, and frankly the 8, 9, 10, and 11, 12, which have been absolute death at Gulfstream since the renovation and the reconfiguration. But be sure you're paying attention, and you note the races that are going to be at 0 feet and 84 feet on Saturday.
Is that as significant, Steve? When you have the rails out at Santa Anita on grass, it's next to impossible for horses to close from off the pace. Does it have that much of an impact on race shape and outcome, more importantly?
It can, and one of the advantages of taking this rail down, they've been saving the inside pads specifically for Saturday. This is a turf course that notoriously gets lightning quick. Frankly, yeah. That has not happened.
Well, I guess we lost Steve.
We lose Steve?
I think so. Well, we'll just jump to race 11 until he comes back. So race 11 was the next race we were going to talk about. So I have a couple horses in this race that I like, and Laffit will then talk about the horse that he liked. I'm going to jump to the True Odds module here. And I'm just going to sort it on the adjusted True Odds. And so the horses that come to the top is the top selections in the grid. Number 12, Hunter O'Reilly, and number 2, Montclair. Those are the 2 horses I like in this race. This does seem like a wide open race. So, I mean, my recommendation to anyone is look for a price here. I think someone's going to, with this field is so competitive, and going a mile and a half, you're going to have to get a good trip. And I think the winner's going to somehow carve out a good trip, and that's probably the horse that's most likely to win. It's just going to be trying to figure out how the pace is going to unfold and the type of trip that the horse you like can get. So with Hunter O'Reilly, the main reason I like him, of course, is just because it's the top selection on the adjusted True Odds. And then when I go into the PPs, it's one of the other minor things that I went to the wrong horse, sorry. I like was that when Jimmy Toner uses John Velasquez, when you look at the situational statistics with Jockey here, you see that out of 24 starts, he's won 33% of the time with a plus 10% ROI. So that was just another good sign to me that John Velasquez is sticking with this horse. He's ridden the last 3 times. I would probably give it a little more credit if he hadn't been riding him and getting on him, but still, I still think it's a slightly positive sign, and so that's one of the reasons that I like Hunter O'Reilly. And then the other horse is Montclair. We'll just look at him. He was the number 2 selection via the adjusted true odds. And what I like him was that last race was 2 miles, and he was clearly the second best horse in the race. He finished ahead of Hunter O'Reilly, and he also has the angle that Laffit talked about when we talked about the 4th race, where the horse is moving from the outer post position. It was in post 11, and now is moving to an inner post with number 2 in these turf races. So that's the main reason that I like those 2 horses. So Laffit, you can talk about the horse that you like.
Yeah, Craig. And this is wide open. And you mentioned Hunter O'Reilly, 15 to 1 on the morning line. Montclair, 10 to 1 on the morning line. I like Sadler's Joy, 8 to 1 on the morning line, who did beat Montclair in his last start. And for this W.L. McKnight, you see 1.5 mile grass racing at Gulfstream, Craig, and no matter how long it's been, the first image that comes to mind is Prized and Eddie De La Houssaye winning that first Breeders' Cup that had ever been contested at Gulfstream Park, back when you could have Breeders' Cups at Gulfstream Park. Back in '89, Neil Drysdale, he had 2 second-place finishes early on the day, and finally getting the money with Prized, who ran in the turf only because he didn't want to take on Sunday Silence and Easy Goer again in the Breeders' Cup Classic, not to go too far off on a tangent. But yeah, I hate the post with Sadler's Joy, but here's what I like. The switch to Julien Leparoux. And with that alone, on horses that are 8 to 1 or lower on the morning line, the switch to Leparoux, specifically on grass, the numbers speak for themselves. 23% strike rate. And we discussed that success score. Anything over 5 is going to jump off the pages. A 7 success score with Julien Leparoux taking over on grass horses. Sadler's Joy, Julien Leparoux taking up. Also, you look at the pedigree. The pedigree speaks for itself. Kitten's Joy, who was a monster at the age of 3. He was a defeated Breeders' Cup turf favorite in I believe it was the '04 Breeders' Cup turf. And as a stallion, as we all know, the Ramseys have built an empire around Kitten's Joy, the super stallion. As a sire, in graded stakes races, over the past year, you're looking at a 17% win rate. Kitten's Joy, the sire, on grass races, graded stakes races, the success score well over 5. It's a 6.1 success score and a 6% return on investment. You have a few more other angles in there, Craig. You have a winner of 3 straight races, Sadler's Joy. The switch has been thrown. He's figured it out. After losing his first 3, after finishing off the board in his first 3 races, he has rattled off 3 straight races. So he heads into this graded stakes race with a ton of momentum. As we mentioned, he beat Montclair at 1 mile 3/8 in his last race, and he has a previous win, this is key, at the distance, 1.5 miles on grass. So you combine, that's where he broke his mate, 1.5 miles on grass. You combine all that, it's a wide open race. Like I said, I hate the post, but you dig a little bit deeper into the numbers that Stats Race Lens provides, and you see that I think there is some real value there offered with Sadler's Joy if Leparoux can somehow work out a trip from that difficult number 11 post position.
It might be a good thing, Craig, to pull up the True Odds page so we can look at the pace picture, because there really is not a lot of pace involved here, and that portion of it is certainly an element of the equation. There's also a funny dynamic that might be worth mentioning, and that has to do with the winner from a year ago. And as it happens, if we go back to Charming Kitten, and it just so happens that the Jerkins, the 2 mile Alan Jerkins, was run after the McKnight last year. But Charming Kitten has been basically freshened up for this spot. So you do have a defending winner. You also have a horse in Taglib coming off of the Jerkins win. And he closed into just dawdling fractions. And Taglib, to me, is a horse that, with Gaffalione, who's really, I think, has really reached a next level of late. I think Tyler Gaffalione is not just a nice, summer rider at Gulfstream, but take a look at the pace scenario, because there is really not a lot in here in terms of horses that want to be up near the lead.
Yeah, I think you're right, and even we have computer-generated comments for the race projections, and it even tells you here that the pace is projected to slow down in the middle of the race, and that it might be tough for a horse with a sustained running style to make up the needed ground. So the only caveat is it is a mile and a half, and it's just the flow of the race can go any way. There are a lot of times at a mile and a half where you see slow fractions, but the horses still come from dead last, especially if they have any type of European background. So it's definitely this is a great handicapping race. There's lots of different ways to look at it, different angles to play. I just recommend that anyone make sure you're getting a price in this race, because I think someone's going to get a great trip, or it's going to play out just the way they want, and that's the horse that's going to kind of pull away at the end.
So Gaffalione gets the save ground, as we just discussed. This is a race that is with the rails down at 0 feet. So basically the suck-along trip down inside, and if he's within striking range, he's a horse that can impact 6-1, and it will be interesting to see where the money gravitates. You've got some old favorites lining up in here, like Twilight Eclipse, who always takes money, given that West Point is in attendance for their involvement when it comes to the Pegasus. Their horses always take a bunch of money. Mike Maker in these situations, so dangerous. He's got Charming Kitten, of course, as well. You've also got Chad Brown with Mr. Maybe. Maker's got his third horse, Generous Kitten, and Florent Giroux gets aboard, and we've seen Giroux elevate horses' performance. He's got a tremendous touch in terms of getting horses to run for him. So a terrific addition of the McKnight. And of course, W.L. McKnight, famed at Tartan Farms and also as 3M Corporation, and John Nehru trained for many, many years for Mr. McKnight. That gets us to the feature, and the 12th race on this card is a race that a lot of people a year ago wouldn't have believed was going to happen. And the $12 million, as nutty as that sounds, Pegasus World Cup comes to fruition right about 48 hours from now. And Craig, your thoughts when you started to open up Race Lens and see what was under the hood?
One thing that I think first, if Laffit can kind of give an update on, since he's got feet on the ground there's a couple interesting things that have come up today, and so maybe he can mention those first, and then we can look at the horses that we like.
Yeah, Craig, I mean, is rave reviews regarding Arrogate and how he's looked in his last couple of works, and how Bob Baffert will tell you he's been sweating bullets every time it's been ready for Arrogate to take another step closer towards the Pegasus World Cup. Jay Pribben at the Daily Racing Form tweeting earlier this afternoon that Arrogate is wearing a 3/4 shoe to prevent what is an abscess that they're hoping will not turn into a quarter crack. Again, a 3/4 shoe protecting an abscess, Bob Baffert is hoping will not turn into a quarter crack. So, yeah, it's going to be a very long 48 hours for Bob Baffert. Now, Bob Baffert did add, this was in Jay Pribben's tweet, in quotes, Bob Baffert said, "No excuses." How concerned is he? I don't know. It doesn't sound great. With $12 million on the line and having to face California Chrome, no matter how far outside he's drawn, we all know how much of an impact something like that can carry on a horse's performance. So that's absolutely something to keep our eyes on over the next couple of days.
Yeah, and so I just want to talk about the top two horses we know are great. We know, I hope as a fan that they're going to come battling down to the wire again. I mean, the Classic was fantastic, and I hope both of them run their race. Of course, the drawback that California Chrome has to face now is being stuck in that 12 post. I mean, at a mile and an eighth, that's ever since they reconfigured the Gulfstream track, that is not anywhere on the outside isn't really where you would prefer to be. But I mean, he does have a lot of natural speed, and I do think he'll be able to get position. But I could see people trying to see if there's a chink in the armor with him as far as that goes. The horse that I had landed on as an improving horse to throw in the exotics was number 3, Neolithic. If you look at the adjusted true odds, you can see that he's clearly ranked third. The two top horses are 6-5, 7-5, but he's next at 11-1, with everyone else being close to 40-1 or higher on the predictive odds. So I like that aspect of it. When I look at the past performances, I like that this horse is his equibase speed figures are improving, going from 94 to 98 to 111 to 121. It's just a very encouraging progression. It's a Pletcher trainee that just seems to be on the improve. They put him in the spot. He can move up some more and be right in the mix. And that's what I think about this horse. And I know Laffit had a price horse that he was fond of too here.
Is it Shaman or Shaman? I've heard it 50 different ways. Is it Shaman or Shaman?
Either way.
Either way. Either's good. Shaman Ghost. First of all, it's Jimmy Jerkins in graded stakes races. It's a simple stat. It speaks for himself. He's winning at about a 25% clip. He was third in the Grade 1 Clark. His last 2 Grade 1 races, both run at a mile and an eighth. He knows how to pull off an upset. He defeated a horse who was considered the motor lock of the century and Frosted going into the Woodward after romping in the Whitney at Saratoga, and Shaman Ghost beat him. So that's his last 2 races at the Grade 1 level, both at a mile and an eighth, and he hit the board in both, winning the Woodward and running third in the Clark, and a couple of excuses exiting the Clark. He made that long, sustained run, which I think only helps moving forward. You remember, I think it was a temperature that kept Shaman Ghost from running in the Breeders' Cup Classic, so he only figures to move up, even though we haven't seen him since the Clark. Speed favoring track that day at Churchill Downs, so several reasons to like Shaman Ghost moving forward. A pedigree. Ghost Sapper, as a sire, in graded stakes route races, you're seeing a 21% win clip at a 4.6 success score. That hell, that's Ghost Sapper, siring, horses running in graded stakes route races. This one's off the charts. The switch to jockey Jose Ortiz in a graded stakes race. Ortiz jumps in the cockpit. Javier Castellano opted to ride Keen Ice. Ortiz in the saddle in graded stakes races, you're seeing a 20% win clip, a 7.0 success score, 42% return on investment, 42% ROI with Jose Ortiz jumping in the saddle for the first time horses graded stakes races. It's again, these are, I'm not saying I'm expecting Shaman Ghost to go out there and beat Arrowgate or beat California Chrome. What I am saying is that you dig deep into the numbers, and I think you'll find that he's a must-use in all exotics, not to mention Shaman Ghost. The shipping from Churchill to Gulfstream angle has been effective, and we mentioned the 2 races at a mile and an eighth and the Woodward at the Clark. So yeah, a lot to like here, I think, about Shaman Ghost moving forward. I don't know that Jimmy will be killing any giants on Saturday. I do think that Shaman Ghost is in the running for $1 million for the third place finisher in this Pegasus, expecting him to make a big late run off of a relatively hot pace.
You talk about Ortiz, who of course was a finalist for the Eclipse Award, and everybody, both he and Mike Smith, were distant second and third to Javier in the polling, which frankly seemed a little odd that it was that wide of a margin. But I'm just looking in terms of Jimmy using Jose Ortiz. Craig, I see 5 times Ortiz has been employed by Jimmy, 3 for 5 for a 60% clip and a $2.74 ROI. Can you quickly do a search that shows us Jimmy with Ortiz ideally in stakes?
Yeah, I could pull that one up. The only thing is with the five, I'm not sure how many what the results will be, but I can do that quickly, no problem.
You can
This
see,
is part of
when
the.
you look,
Go ahead, Steve.
well, just now the screen's changed, but you see right there the stats for Jimmy with graded stakes, and the finite the further whittling down of statistics. We talk about this virtually in every area. When you take that added step and go beyond the top line statistic, and one of the things that you'll see, as everybody can see, Craig is doing now is creating a search, and we've gone through these in prior webinars, and it gives you a piece of information that is not obvious to the rest of the horse playing public, and that's why this system is so much fun to use, because you're going to find your own angle. And while certain people are seeing a more public statistic, you may be able to find a statistic beneath the statistic that maybe makes it even stronger, or even better, makes it weaker. And sometimes that includes surface situations. Sometimes it includes, I can tell you as a big New York player, sometimes in state-bred races, there'll be a disparate, a very disparate statistical number, particularly in maiden races. And if you go to a trainer's stat and you break out open company versus New York breds in New York, you'll find things you won't believe. Where a guy that looks like a 14% maiden special trainer is actually a 28% trainer in New York bred maiden special weights. So finding that stat beneath the surface of the stat, that's how you orchestrate successful wagers, by finding things that give you an edge.
That's, we all know the guy who says, that trainer always wins when he does this with that kind of horse at that distance on this particular surface, or that particular jockey always wins when he winds up on the lead on the grass going at 1 mile and a 16th and farther. Now with these products, you can say, oh, really? And you can plug in that particular formula, and you can get so detailed, actually run the back test and see whether or not that person telling you, that trainer or that jockey who always win in those given situations, whether or not statistically that holds any water.
Now, there's your answer.
Yeah. Go ahead. Uh-huh.
Well, and the answer here is that Jimmy has utilized Jose Ortiz 5 times. They've won 3 races together. As it turns out, 3 of those 5 have come in graded stakes. And in those 3 of those 5 times, 2 of the 3 win. So they're 2 for 3, 66%. Not a big base, but it does give you confidence if you say to yourself, I like the concept of Shaman Ghost. I like Jose Ortiz, who is very good on a horse that is drafting on or near the lead. There's that element to like. And yes, this is an unusual stake. This is not your typical Saturday stake. But if you're looking for that added reason, you just found it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention one thing, because this feature was introduced while we've been on this little break here from having our webinars, and that's that that now there is red and green highlighting for different types of angles. So when you're on the home page and you see a green highlight, like we do for Arrogate here, that means that he has at least one positive angle. And so when you mouse over the number 3 for the matches, the 2 angles that are positive are Baffert using Mike Smith and Bob Baffert with a last out winner. You can click on those and get the particulars of them, but I just wanted to mention that if there's a horse has at least one positive angle, it's going to be highlighted green so you don't miss any type of positive angles that you have created. And then on the flip side, with Aragon, when you see a red highlight, when you mouse over it, in this case, it's just this horse has been off for 45 days, and he doesn't have any workouts that are, or when you see, you know, 30 out of 60 workouts, you know, if you're in the 30 above, you're in the top 50% of the workouts on the day. If you're below that, you're below that. So when a horse is off for a long time, like over 45 days, they should have at least some type of workout that shows some positive form, and this horse doesn't. And so that's kind of a negative angle. And so those are things that we just recently added during the break to Race Lens, and I just wanted to show where the control of the positive and negative is, and that's where this, when you go to the Manage Search Angles page, where it says Set Highlight Thresholds, this is where you, the user, can control what the thresholds are. So like for me, I want to see an ROI of break even or better for an angle to be positive. But I mean, we have the defaults to I think it's -12, and one of the reasons for that is if you were just to randomly bet horses, just pick a name out of a hat every race, you're going to lose about 25% of your money, so 25 cents on the dollar. So when you're looking at, like, when Laffit is going over the different types of angles, when you see something, you know, that even if it's not positive, it's close to break even, -2, -5, you know that's still performing extremely well, and even anything in the -12, -15 range is still a positive factor, and so you should just factor that into your handicapping when you're looking at those types of angles. And I just wanted to make people aware of that functionality and of kind of the numbers to look for when you're looking at the angles. They'll trigger you to, hey, there might be something more there, and then you can dig into the PPs some more.
We should really stay here for a little bit. Anybody that is signed on and wants to add a question and wants a page brought up and something about any of the participants in here, and I did see a question, Craig, curious about the Olympic, as you addressed, and he's a horse that you've got a high regard for coming into this. Maybe pull up the True Odds page again and the pace, because this continues to be the starting point of every discussion. Laffit, you certainly have been up front and had the opportunity to watch California Chrome throughout the career and irrigate in his somewhat brief number of starts. In terms of these two leaving from the 1 and the 12, and knowing that we have a horse like Noble Bird who needs the lead or needs to be at least out in front without a horse in front of him to be comfortable. If there's horses on either side, I think he won't mind that. But a horse that also doesn't break very well. I keep hearing people saying, oh, there's lots of speed. I don't see that there's all that much speed. And in fact, even sense a situation where if Mike Smith, breaks sharp, no reason to think he won't, he could establish position and maybe even let California Chrome clear so that he could then set up shop outside him.
Yeah, I think that if there's one advantage or one aspect that somewhat negates California Chrome having to deal with the 12th post, again, Big Brown, the only horse since the reconfiguration of Gulfstream Park that has won from the 12th post, going to mile and an eighth at Gulfstream Park. Big Brown didn't have to deal with a horse the likes of Arrogate on that particular afternoon. But there is no speed whatsoever from post positions 5 through 11. Noble Bird, he's going to go. Which version of Noble Bird shows up? I have no idea. He's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Neolithic, the switch has been thrown. You look at his last couple of starts and going wire to wire in that allowance win here at Gulfstream and earning that big buyer speed figure. I expect him to be very close. Mike Smith told me the same thing before the Breeders' Cup Classic as he did in the airport yesterday. He just wants Arrogate to jump. It's the way he describes it. He just wants him to jump. In other words, when the stall doors pop open, that he's not flat-footed. If you go back through his past performances, you'll see off a step slow, off slow. He's not a great gate horse. He can be a little sluggish, a little tardy leaving the gate, which is a concern from the inside post position. You want to talk about Big Brown races. Look at what happened to Big Brown in the Belmont Stakes when he was drawn down along the inside, and he was a step slow. Every other jockey out there, they've been hearing the same things we have, reading the same headlines. It's a two-horse race. If other jockeys can make things difficult on the Breeders' Cup Classic winner and apply pressure where he's more vulnerable from the inside, they're going to do just that. I think Noble Bird winds up in front. If Arrowgate, quote, jumps, I think he's right off of his flank, saving all the ground on the inside. And it's a question of how aggressive Victor Espinosa is going to be with California Chrome. He needs to break extraordinarily sharp. He needs to get over. I think he's sitting second or third off of Noble Bird. Maybe he goes after the lead. I don't know how aggressive and how much Victor wants to use him early. It's a 1 1/8 race versus a 1 1/4 race. That makes a difference. Maybe he can be a little bit more aggressive early on. But from the onset, I think Victor has to consider it a win. A win if he only loses 3 or so lengths. Big Brown was 3 or 4 wide when he won that Florida Derby. And that's the concern going in, is that Chrome had everything his own way in the Breeders' Cup and still lost by a half length to Arrowgate. Facing Arrowgate again here, who's going to save all the ground, and he's going to be conceding precious, precious real estate.
Well, and there's no doubt that's the concern. I think that he doesn't necessarily have to be that hard used. And people that are referencing the 9 for 200 and change from post 8 out. The Big Brown. I was a huge Smooth Air fan. Smooth Air was second to him that day by a wide distance. Big Brown was beating horses that he was just so much better than. Here, there is not that luxury, as Laffit points out. In terms of some of the other things that Craig and Laffit that we can find, any other clues, including horses that have advantage of races over the track, for instance. Neolithic, 2 for 2 at Gulfstream. Todd Pletcher's gaudy numbers at Gulfstream in general. Things like that. You got some mystery horses here, including Prayer for Relief, who everybody that has seen him preparing says he looks better than he has in years, and has made a great positive impression. And when the Daily Racing Form Clocker report comes out tomorrow afternoon, there's going to be raves about Prayer for Relief, who might be 60-1.
Wasn't he the horse that was supposed to make way for Gunrunner for a while?
Well, that kept changing. There was a couple of spots. It was Mick Ruiz, War Envoy, was ultimately going to be the replacement part.
My point being is that he had no business, as if he had no business. The old 9-year-old Prayer for Relief, and like you said, as far as a horse coming into a race, nobody's saying he's going to beat Arrowgate or California Chrome, but damn it, that he's coming into the race as good or better than he's ever looked. And I mean, we are talking about a multimillionaire here.
Got questions as well, guys, about Keen Ice. And of course, when you've got on your resume running down American Pharoah, and frankly, that scenario, American Pharoah and the fight that Frost had put up, Jose Lezcano jumping aboard and going aggressively against Victor Espinosa and American Pharoah, leaving him vulnerable to that late run. One aspect of that question is the 1 1/4 versus this distance of 1 1/8. And I think that, frankly, on this oval, Keen Ice is a little bit vulnerable in terms of a short stretch to work with. He does not have the luxury here necessarily of a long stretch, even a typical stretch.
He looked good in his last work. Mixed reviews about his work. 2 back, Keen Ice, getting ready for the Pegasus World Cup. He's not the stone closer that we saw in the Travers, taking advantage of that wicked pace duel with Frosted and American Pharoah. Todd Pletcher has manipulated his running style. He has him sitting much closer to the pace. And I don't know, far be it for me to question Javier Castellano and the decision that was made here. The guy just won his like 19th consecutive Eclipse Award or whatever it is. But he had options. He could have gone with Fletcher's Neolithic, Shaman Ghost, or Keen Ice. I think for me, for my money, Keen Ice would have been, to me, it would have been between Shaman Ghost and Neolithic. Keen Ice, who still only won the 2 lifetime races, his legacy will always be the only horse that defeated American Pharoah during American Pharoah's 3-year-old season and Triple Crown run. Speed favoring Gulfstream Park. This is the key, Steve, that you pointed out. This isn't 10 furlongs. If you wanted to make it a classic race, then it should be run at the classic American racing distance. It isn't run at 1.25 miles. It's run at 1.1 miles. That works against Keen Ice, even though he does assume the role more so of a mid-pack type of racehorse as opposed to a stone closer.
Craig, let's add in Breaking Lucky. You got a couple different people. Virgil is asking about the Gunpowder Farms / West Point / Reeves, Dean and Patty Reeves runner, and the 5-year-old looking at Lucky coming in here really. I can't call it a second off of a layoff. It was seen, of course, in the Clark, and Gun Runner wasn't going to be caught that particular day. But what can we glean in terms of Breaking Lucky making a first start as a mature horse? What is out there in Stats Race Lens that could offer some clues?
Yeah, I mean the one race that kind of puts him in the mix is the race he had against the Shaman Ghost in the Woodward, I guess. I mean, if you're trying to look for positive aspects, and I mean that's the thing that's best. And then I also heard that I read an article today that Tom Durkin has a small percentage in him, so you think that is a positive angle? But I don't know if that is or not. Stats Race Lens doesn't have anything like that. But I think people are going to try to with the superfectas, with the super high five that that might get a lot of money this race. I think people are trying to look for prices, and Shaman Ghost is what Lafitte's going to go with. I'm going to go with Neolithic, and I could see putting Breaking Lucky in there, but otherwise I didn't have really too much on him when I was looking at him.
Lafitte, anything you like about Breaking Lucky?
Just that he's made it a habit in some big races of outrunning his odds. He was defeated, a neck for the whole thing in the Woodward at odds of 48-1. If you thought Gun Runner was going to be a major player, if he was allowed to enter in at Gulfstream, sans the nasal swab, then maybe you give him a second look. Second to Gun Runner at odds of 46-1 in the Clark. That's 2 Grade 1 races, one of which he was in the money finishing second. The other one, he was a neck short of winning the whole thing, 46-1 and 48-1. This is a horse that in multiple occasions has been completely overlooked and went out there and performed beyond expectation. I understand neither the Woodward nor the Clark feature the California Chrome or an Arrow Gate, but it is a horse who has established a pattern of outrunning his odds in Grade 1 races.
I'll also make a point that if you go through his PPs, you'll notice every time Reed Baker has had an opportunity to run him on dirt, moving off of synthetic, he's improved. There's a school of thought here that says that he's actually a better dirt horse than he ever has been as a synthetic horse. And that, to me, is something that as making a first start as a 5-year-old, as a mature horse, that's something that's actually kind of encouraging to me. And I will ask, Craig, again, to try to do a search, because Reed Baker has very strong numbers, 60 to 180 days layoffs, 15%, nice enough, pretty much right in line with his win percentage, but he's got almost a $4 ROI. And I'd be very curious how he's done off of this kind of a layoff, pointing a horse for a graded stake. And let's see if maybe there's a little added clue in there for Reed Baker.
Sure, I can look that up. Oh, one moment.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. I believe Baker is in search of his first Grade One win. What a story that would be! His first career Grade One win in the world's richest horse race. I know he was second with the Sprinter in a Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Bullet, fast bullet. Was it fast bullet or fatal bullet?
Fatal bullet. Yeah, yeah. But I believe still in search of his first career Grade One win.
Interesting, and of course has won Canadian Triple Crown races, but of course restricted company. Really a guy that's really easy to root for and does a nice job. This is a nice horse, and very much like Neolithic, a horse that that seems to still have some upside. We're not talking about War Story yet either. War Story, it continues to clearly be on the improve, and people get a kick out of Ron Paolucci. Luch loves all of his horses, but what he has said through the end of the year really has come to pass. And in fact, the figures on that very tough day of the Queens County have almost uniformly been increased by all the measures of speed figures. And War Story is really not far off from the rest of these horses. And really, between that Good Cigar Mile effort and the win in the Queens County, he's a horse that's going to be $1 million to 1. That has got the kind of style that says he could clunk up for a third or a fourth, which he's done in the past. So
he didn't just develop
a number of horses like that.
He didn't just develop a fastball overnight, right, Steve? Like we don't expect the fact that War Story made the lead, went wire to wire in the Queens County. We don't expect him to impact the pace, do we?
No.
Okay.
I mean, he may be ridden out of the gate to gain position, but I don't think they necessarily. Ron and Dan Schaefer, I think they're too smart for that. I think they might want to establish position. But they might be just as eager to, like some others, to let hopefully the big pair cancel each other out and maybe engage in a speed duel of some kind, and then come riding. I mean, one of the things everybody's talked about is the likelihood for a lot of jocks to be riding for second, third, fourth under best case scenarios.
It changes strategy. Third place is $1 million purse. That's 200,000 for. I mean, it makes a huge difference. You mentioned Ron Paolucci. He does things his way, doesn't he? I mean, he shares the distinction of the only person who I've ever done a walkover interview with for an American Classic horse race, the Preakness, in sweatpants. Did the walkover with Rhea Antonia in sweatpants. Didn't care. Look, he's going to do things his way, and he doesn't care what you think about him or what I think about him. There's something to be said for that.
So I put that. I put that criteria in, and we're waiting for the results still. I did want to bring up in the fifth race there was a horse that Laffit liked, and I just brought up the PPs, and maybe Laffit, you just want to quickly mention a couple things why you like Made from Lucky in the fifth race.
Yeah, let me get there. I mean, it's Todd Pletcher, and the fact that he's done some of his very best work at Gulfstream, and specifically at this distance. He's 7-2 on the morning line. He's a clear. If you look at the true odds, he's a clear second choice. It's Pletcher switching to Castellano. I know a lot of these things sound obvious, but even when you run the numbers, they make sense, and it's worthwhile to follow. Pletcher with Castellano in graded stakes races, you're going to see a 27% strike rate with the success score almost at an 8. Todd Pletcher with Made from Lucky in his second race off of the layoff plus 45 days, you're going to see some solid statistics and numbers to back up that particular angle. So yeah, with Made for Lucky, again, those names jump off the pages, and they normally are going to attract someone, wagering just the presence of Pletcher, the presence of a Castellano is going to draw an added amount of money. We're talking about the Pegasus here, race number 5 on the undercard of the Pegasus Poseidon, make that with a $400,000 purse. I'm interested to see how much money that the favorite Stanford takes. I believe he's even money on the morning line. The other Fletcher is the direction I'm leaning in for the reasons mentioned. Again, it's not, I don't know how deep you have to go for those numbers. Those numbers are on the surface, but by the same token, when you run those numbers, you still, as far as the ROI and as far as how productive those particular angles have been, as obvious as they are, they're still worthwhile following to the windows.
Speaking of numbers, and as Craig pulls up the stats on Reed Baker, want to give everybody the details of a terrific offer particularly for those of you that haven't yet subscribed. And the deal offers you 3 months worth, a full quarter's worth of Stats Race Lens access for the price of 1 month. And the code to use, SRLQ, Stats Race Lens Quarter, 129S. And terrific value to get 3 months worth of Stats Race Lens for the price of a month. What did we find out, Greg?
It came up with no results. So unfortunately, there was nothing.
Interesting.
Nothing there. But if for those users who have more time, you can maybe try to find something else, with the distance and surface or something like that, and come up with an angle. For me, there was just one more horse I wanted to talk about on the card, because this is my favorite horse of the day, and it comes in the 9th race, the Gulfstream Park Turf Sprint. And so the horse that I am really high on is number 11, Power Alert. When I looked at the adjusted true odds, this horse has a clear advantage. They have it predicted at 5-2. The next closest horses are 6 and 7-1. When I look into the PPs, you can see that when I mouse over the angles, that the horse is a Gulfstream Park horse for course. When we look over in the record box, we see that he's 4 for 4 at Gulfstream. So the horse is has run this 5 furlong distance on the turf at Gulfstream 4 times, won all 4 times. I like that Leparoux is, out of those 4 races, Leparoux was on him 3 of those 4 wins. So Leparoux is familiar with the horse. He's getting back on the horse. And then also the angle that Laffit had talked about earlier in turf races, when Leparoux there's jockey change and Leparoux's getting on, and the horse is, a contender. His morning line odds are less or equal to 8-1. Got that angle going for him. And then also there's an angle that Laffit and I had come up with, that Tampa Bay Downs horses, when they have what we call a competitive equibase speed figure, they ran in that last race at Tampa. When they come to Gulfstream Park, those horses do well, and I can bring up the stats here. And so I didn't want to mention one thing that hopefully it's going to be next week. It could be the week after, but Laffit has come up with some different angles for race lens, things that he looks for, things that when he went and checked out, panned out. It's like what he said before. Sometimes you think in your mind, you remember big wins and you think something's a positive angle, but then you go put the criteria in and you find out, hey, it's a losing angle. It's not a winning angle. So we came up with some different angles. Most of them are positive angles. Some are more break even, but they have nice win percentages. There's a handful that Laffit identified for things that are what we call negative angle. So it's a horse to throw out because of the different criteria. And so we're hoping that it'll either be next week or the week after, that when you go to all the users, when they go to the manage angles screen, they're going to, just the way that now that they see the source with the stats labeled ones, there'll be a group labeled Pincay, and those stats will all be there, and they're ones that people can build off of, look at, use, and that's what we're going to be introducing in the very near future, and we're excited about that.
I love this. I'm getting credit for once for bad handicapping. I'm finding negative angles. I'm getting credit for this. The thing is with this particular tool, and I've been playing around with it for about a month or so, and for someone who's not as familiar with it, there's so much information here, but you just take the time to play with it a little while, and slowly but surely you start building somewhat of a template. And when you're getting ready to handicap, or in my case, it's just research, getting ready for a show like we have for the Pegasus coming up on Saturday, digging a little bit deeper. In sports these days, in baseball, football, basketball, when you're talking about these individual athletes, franchises are determining the value of an individual athlete based on the metrics, based on the analytics. This is horse racing's answer to just that, the fact that you can go a little bit deeper. And once you build your own template, it kind of runs itself and almost handicaps for you based on the angles that you follow specifically. And I can't, Craig, it's been a blast just getting to learn the product, and looking forward to seeing how this pays off and how it all pans out with the research we plugged in for the Pegasus World Cup race itself and the undercard.
Well, Laffit, you will know that you've reached critical mass using Stats Race Lens when you're able to surprise Nick Luck with a statistic.
Really? Isn't it like, did he, okay, he didn't actually check in. It's like 3 in the morning over there.
Well, when you're able to stump Nick, that means that you hit a home run using Stats Race Lens.
I stumped Nick 3 times before my feet hit the floor in the morning.
Oh boy, this is going to get back to him. Well, and of course,
I'm counting on it.
the NBC crew on hand at Gulfstream for this improbable start to the 2017 season. Literally, with the dust not even settled on 2016. A week ago, the results of the Eclipse Awards, and now the top 2 older horses in training together, the 4-year-old Arrogate and 5-year-old California Chrome, and really or 6-year, 5 or 6, I'm losing track. And it should be incredibly entertaining, and we certainly hope that everybody, if you're not going to be there, we hope that you'll tune in to Laffit and the team on NBC.
Looking forward to it. Steve, the thing is, real quick, just a final thought, and I realize that there are some skeptics out there about this entire idea of the Pegasus, and Jack Wolf has already admitted it does need some tweaking moving forward. But the fact is, any other year right now, we'd be talking about a Don Handicap. And as respected as the Don Handicap was, and as traditional and important of a stakes race it was, this year the subplot would be the lack of depth in the older horse division. The subplot would be the fact that Gunrunner, the would-be favorite, wasn't allowed to race, wasn't allowed to enter Gulfstream Park. Arrogate would be turned out. We wouldn't be seeing him probably until late spring, summer, pointing towards a fall campaign. And California Chrome would be retired. Instead, we have almost what feels like a rubber match. Arrogate got the best of Chrome in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Chrome got the best of Arrogate at the award show last week. And for Chrome's last race, he gets to face his familiar foe once again in the world's richest horse race. And as a horse racing fan, if nothing else, as a horse racing fan, you have to be super excited about what's about to take place at Gulfstream.
Well, we want to make sure everybody follows Laffit Pincay TV, and of course follow Stats Race Lens on Twitter. Again, the opportunity to get a terrific discount on the product, 3 months worth for the price of 1 month. SRLQ 129S is your promo code. Craig Walker, best of luck this weekend, and we're probably 3 weeks away or 2 weeks away from our next webinar. If you missed anything, you'll be able to pull it up and listen again. I hope everybody enjoys it. We'll Also wish everybody at the National Handicapping Championship the best of luck. We'll crown potentially a new winner if Paul Matisse doesn't repeat. On Sunday, we'll be streaming Saturday and Sunday coverage at stevebyk.com as well. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Have a terrific weekend. Best of luck, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Good luck, everyone.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.